Fam, it's here. Super Bowl 60 and Film Don't Lie is here to help give you all the preview for the big game. It's the main entree of the NFL season. And we are brought to you by Alonzi Travel, specializing in creating the vacation of your dreams at Disney, Universal, or wherever your heart calls you. Reach out and get a quote to start planning. My email, charles@alonzi-travel.com, is below at the ticker. If you need it at any point in the show, reach out to me again to start your vacation planning. It's your boy Chucks, it's OGP, and our good friend, the esteemed Les Bowen. Guys, how are you? How are you hanging in with the cold? Because I think the cold is starting to subside a little bit. Ice is melting a little bit, but it's still there. So how are you guys hanging in?
It has been quite a thing. I mean, I've lived here a while now. I grew up in North Carolina, but I've lived here since 1983, and I've seen more snow than this, certainly. Mm-hmm. But I've never seen a big snow just freeze solid.
Right? Yeah. It's so crazy.
I could walk for several days there. I could walk across my backyard without making a print. You know.
Wow. It was nuts. The day of the storm, which was what, Sunday?
That was Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday. I started shoveling probably around 1 o'clock, because I think that's when the snowfall was starting to subside a bit. And it was cold, so we were like, let's get some of this out of the way. Mm-hmm. The next day, it was all frozen. It was all ice. I'm like, dear Lord, we had to get shovels and just
it's almost like you had to chisel it at that point.
Yeah, we had to chisel it before we shoveled it out of the way. It was crazy, and it's still there. But hopefully it's it starts to melt. I think it's getting up in the 30s now.
Next Wednesday is the first day in the 40s.
Okay, so next Wednesday.
But it's going to get super cold again this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the temperature going, and that's the one thing for our region that generally we've dealt with the big snowfalls before. Blizzard of '96. Every year that ends in the 6, it seems like we get a lot of snowfall. But the cold front behind it is what, and the long-standing cold front behind it, which is not allowing the snow, the ice to really evaporate and turn back into the water. And then I think you're actually starting to see, I want to see on the tail end of this what the damage of the roads are being treated, because even the salt and the calcium chloride it's staying on these surfaces for an extended period of time. Yeah, I mean, I've already noticed some spots in my driveway that I'm going to be very curious to see, because it's almost like, yes, I want the temperatures to come up and to melt everything away, but it's like after that, then we get back to a clean slate. What are your sidewalks?
It's the damage,
the damage is because, I mean, even you can have some areas that have a lot of potholes and a lot of salt, and you can eat at the potholes, and they have that filler and that mixture stuff. So I mean, but needless to say, I mean, no, I don't think there's a lot of power outages out here, which was the biggest concern from that storm with the ice. Yeah. So we dodged one from there, and then even this past weekend we didn't really see anything. I think we may see a dusting tomorrow morning, and then possibly Friday afternoon could be some accumulation. But by next Wednesday, we should be a couple days in the 40s. Really start to see, because I mean, I can't tell you the last time I saw the grass in my front yard. I mean,
I feel like I could go ice skating in my front yard. It's still untouched and ice. So it's crazy. It's fun, but hopefully it thaws out pretty soon. So let's get into some of this talk.
Yes.
And we have, I know the news was last week, so if you're listening to this, we are recording on Tuesday night. This show is coming out on Wednesday afternoon, and it's pretty much almost roughly a week since the news came out about the Eagles hiring Sean Mannion. So we wanted to get into that and give our thoughts, because we haven't had the opportunity yet. And, of course, that's why we wanted to bring in Les as well. So the Sean Mannion hire, right? So it's all this talk, all the speculation, all the waiting, all the interviews, the vetting, all that. And in the end, the Eagles hire Sean Mannion, who was the QB coach over at, with the Packers. And he gets the job as OC. And then on top of that, we hire Jonathan Grizzard from the Bucs former OC to be the pass game coordinator over here. So it's I might have misspoke. Was Sean Mannion the QB coach or the pass game coordinator? I think
he was the QB coach. I think he may have had the dual role.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So your QB coach. Yeah, I didn't know if I misspoke. With all these like the candidates like being like pass game coordinator this or QB coach, I'm like, which one is it's getting all fuzzy? But right. So those two coming in. So let's talk about it a little bit. Les, I'll let you lead off because I'm sure we've heard a lot about what's been said about him from outside people and sources. I had a guy who covers the Packers that I reached out to and got his thoughts. So he had glowing remarks. But Les, based on what you've heard and read, what do you make? What's your first takeaway from this Sean Mannion hire?
Well, you guys are much more astute X and O people than I am, and I can't really speak to a lot of that in depth. But I will say this: this is the sort of thing Jeffrey Lurie does. Young guy, innovative guy, and bringing in someone a little more experienced to help him out is probably a smart thing to do. This is kind of what I was expecting. Not the name, I barely knew who Sean Mannion was when this whole business started, but this profile is kind of what I expected. And I know they would have you'd love to have somebody really experienced who also has all this other, the background and the kinds of innovations that you're looking for. Mike McDaniel, for whatever reason, just wasn't a good fit. I was never that excited about Brian Daboll. But I think they were interested in those two guys, and that they couldn't get them, so they went to this. And I think this, there are a million bad things that could happen, but I think this is what we wanted. This is the sort of resume, although it's a very short resume, the sort of background this guy has is what we're looking for in an offensive coordinator. And, you put Grizzard in there with him. And I guess the key, and I don't want to talk forever here, I'll let you guys talk, but I guess the big question to me is how much does Nick buy into this? It's not like they hired somebody with a lot of clout, that Nick has to defer to. This is a lot going to depend on Nick's goodwill and Nick being willing to innovate, being willing to accept innovation and stick with it, even if it doesn't go great right off the bat. I can just see, there are a lot of ways this couldn't work out, but I think it's a step in the direction they had to take,
Yeah, no, I hear you. Pete, what do you think?
I mean, I immediately I don't know how, but my mind recognized the name when they announced the hire. I was like, why does that name sound familiar? Right. And I'm like, sounds like I could swear I heard that name, like Sean, like maybe a play call, like Sean Mannion drops back, looks to his right, looks to his left. Like, okay, so that's
not very long ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, to echo off what Les said, I think they were probably all in on McDaniel. Maybe not so much Daboll. And I've said from the start, like if I had to rank them, I was ranking Monken, McDaniel, and then Daboll somewhere, but Daboll's probably like a distant third. And it shows you what the league thinks of Monken because now he's a head coach for the Cleveland Browns. So only 32 of those jobs, regardless of what the Cleveland Brown histories are. And what their track record has been, it's only 1 in 32 in those jobs in the world. Okay. So you have
one. He did not follow. Right. Did not follow Harbaugh like people. So many people
automatically
thought, and I had said it's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee, and he got the head coaching job.
And from this, the biggest thing that we've heard all 18 weeks of the Eagles season was Nick's offense, and Patullo was tied to him more so than what obviously we saw with Kellen Moore and Shane Steichen. Even though he had a relationship with Steichen. He had a somewhat of a relationship with Moore. Those outside influences kind of meld to what his core philosophies are, right? So you kind of want to see something similar here. Yes, it was off the beaten path to get Sean Mannion. And I think if we didn't have the Grizzard hire as well the next day, may feel a little bit differently. I think they would have found some type of senior offensive assistant that had some play calling experience before to bring in as well, just to help Mannion along the way. And this is, like Les stated, this is very eerily similar to Jeff looking, okay, well, we didn't get our top guys. Who is this next guy? Who isn't being talked about in the Clint Kubiak or the Declan Doyle or the Davis Webb? There has to be someone on one of these rosters as a coach, one of these 32 teams, that is a diamond in the rough. And I don't know who it was that introduced him to Mannion or had them take a look at Mannion, but hats off to that person, because this is a very boom or bust job, right? In this market and how what the fans are demanding. I don't think that's unjust to think about how bad the offense was this year. So I do think the bar is very, very low. And then from that standpoint, I take a look at what steps and evolution Jordan Love has taken from 3-4 years ago to these last 2 years when he was under the tutelage of Sean Mannion, and then how that worked and how he looked. And to think that Jalen can emulate some of that. And if you look, the Packers didn't really have any, I would say, above average 1 level, 2 levels away from being elite weapons. But their guys scored points and their guys were able to get open. And I understand that's more of Matt LaFleur as well, but he learned, like, he's been under that. And this is what have we said, like, on 4th and 13 to end your season, it's on the line. We run and go routes. I don't think that happens again next season. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to be a success, but it's a step in the right direction. And the one thing is, and me, Chucks, we've been talking about this offline in our chat, is kudos to Nick, and one of his best attributes is being so pliable, being so malleable, being so flexible, because a lot of other coaches wouldn't go for this.
Yeah.
They would want more input. But Nick, I think Nick in his 6 years of being here, going into his 6 years of being here, has realized, like, what for him as a head coach and in him as an OC, there's similarities there, but they're two different hats that he has to wear. And I think the hat that he has to wear where he's successful is a hat to where the offense kind of just, not want to say runs itself, but is the guys that he has entrusting with the offense are able to do what they do very, very well. And now you have outside concepts from Knicks that are different when we talk about the McVay system, when we talk about the Shanahan system, but not just from Mannion's perspective, but also from now the pass game coordinator being Grizzard as well. So you have that, and I think Nick is now more open, and he's learning kind of from his mistakes here. Because you can even see it when we watched the Super Bowl last year, and they played it back, and then Devontae Smith, he's like, just call it. He knows what the plays is, but he's not the one who conceptually designed that play. But he knows when to potentially, okay, let's take the shot. He had a better feel. And throughout this whole season, this past season, the feel, this felt like we're dancing, but we're like this 1 or 2 beats too slow. And now this here has the potential to almost be a lineage, right? In a way. Now you have to worry about, I know somebody, like, now we hired a young guy. If it's successful, every other year we go back to the Super Bowl. That's been a trend. Somebody's going to poach Sean Mannion, right? I will say this. I do think Jonathan Grizzard is one of the highest paid pass game coordinators in the league after being hired. I think they had to make it worth his while not to become an OC again. And I don't know what that promise was, but he knows maybe potentially this is an easier pathway to another job if they're successful here. And I think something like this, truth be said, may make AJ happy a little bit. I'm thrilled for Devontae. I'm thrilled for Devontae. I don't know. Is Dotson still under contract?
No, he's a free agent.
He's a free agent. So I'm just, even for like someone like Darius Cooper, like I'm happy for those guys, because now you truly will be able to see what it is to not just take the talent and take the personnel and say, beat your man, but now you're going to have the tools to make your job a little bit easier. And we always say, as we get older, work smarter, not harder. You can do the same thing in football conceptually. Play smarter, not harder. Like, you don't have to run through a brick wall if you don't have to. but you can still get the same result. And now we may have a pathway to long-standing success. And who knows? I mean, Nick doesn't strike me as a guy who wants to do this forever. I'll say that. And if you look at him now, from the time frame, we go look at this picture when he got hired. That man's been stressing like he's been in the Oval Office for 8 years. He looks completely different. I mean, and hopefully you try to find that foundation, and then as this is evolving, whatever happens after this season or next season, if Nick learns from this and he can realize, like, okay, this is what I need in my offense to run. This is what I'm looking for, who I'm looking for. If he has to like plug and play and replace, you hope he doesn't have to. But I think now we have questions at right tackle, I should say. We don't know if he's going to come back, right? But I do think the offense, in a way, would be better positioned this year, just from a conceptual basis, than where we're at last year. Yeah. And that's and it's crazy to say that is earth-shattering, but we saw how bad it was, right? And then now this ultimately, from what I've seen, is Sean, Mr. Mannion, the world is your oyster, sir.
Yeah.
The world is your oyster, you know? Yeah. So let's get to it.
Yeah. I think that you guys both hit on a bunch of good points. And like I said, toward the top of the topic, there's quotes after quotes. I mean, even like from today, from Radio Row, I know that a lot of Eagles reporters out there have been getting quotes about Sean Mannion from guys like Clint Kubiak, Nate Tyson, Robert Mays, numerous guys, and everyone has glowing remarks, which is, I think it's definitely not surprising at this point. So yeah, he's definitely an up and comer. I know that one of the pushbacks, right? From Brett Coleman kind of brought this up, and he's one of the like the people out there, like analysts that I really admire. His pushback was really concerned about how much the offense is still going to change because of what can Hurts run, which I think is like understandable.
Fair question.
It's fair question, and I had said in a tweet that because Brett was actually one of the draft analysts that was really high on Jalen when no one else was. So like he's a Jalen believer. So I get it in terms of him seeing like what can or cannot what Hurts can or cannot do. But my counter to that, because if you had talked about this a year ago, like after the Super Bowl, right? Because we all thought something about Kellen Moore and how he was going to do a lot of things. And I think that when he came in and throughout the year, it wasn't as much of a Kellen Moore offense as we expected. So you kind of wonder, like, okay, like how much of this is still Nick and Jalen as opposed to Kellen Moore? What got Kellen Moore over the hump, though, with the Eagles as an offensive coordinator was the fact that he was still able to implement several things from his own offense into Nick's offense, right? And the play calling experience and knowing how to sequence plays was definitely much better because he had that experience, had the acumen. So that's what helped Kellen. But I think the reason why I have confidence now that the offense will change is because, well, twofold. One, we've seen Hurts, because the narrative before was that, Hurts doesn't run under center stuff. He doesn't like to do under center play action. Well, in 2025, he did a bunch of it. Like, not a bunch. I'll reword it. He did it significantly more.
Significant amount. Yeah.
In 2025. And like there was a little bit, they dabbled in under center and pistol under Kellen Moore in 2024, but 2025, it was like, well, we haven't seen this type of offense, this percentage of under center stuff and under center play action, and we kind of wanted more. And when the offense did it, they had mostly success. They were mostly successful with it. So that's one narrative where just like you say Hurts can't do something, but he's kind of shown that he can. So I'm willing to bet that like if you lean into this type of offense further, and remember, Mannion comes from that Shanahan McVay kind of scheme, right? He's from that tree because he played under McVay
Mm-hmm.
before going to Green Bay and being a coach under LaFleur. So that system, that offense is leaning into like under center play action, and more so what the overall philosophy of that of those schemes of Shanahan and McVay schemes is like, why are you finding a way to use motions and formations to exploit tendencies in the defense, right?
Right,
You're
gain an
you're not,
advantage.
yeah, you're not just going, because how many times this year did we see we go up against like a lower ranked defense, right? A defense is really bad, but like our offense doesn't change. Like our offense never changed. The game plan didn't change. The play calling didn't change. We were just running what we run, right? It was never to exploit what the defense's weaknesses are. That doing that is one of the staples of that system, of the Shanahan and McVay system, is exploiting certain weaknesses of the defense and making sure matchup wise you can have success. The other thing about it is marrying the run and the pass game, like getting them to be cohesive is such a big thing. And we're seeing it even with we'll get into it soon, but when you're talking about Clint Kubiak and the Seahawks offense, that's a big reason why they have success this year, because they're able to marry the two. So that's where I'm really confident in it. And then the hiring of Jonathan Grizzard really, to me, cemented my belief that, okay, yeah, this is going to be revamped. Like, this is him coming in and what he can do, because he usually runs more of like a 11 personnel spread offense, using a lot of a significant amount of motion, all that. So it's not quite that McVay system, McVay or Shanahan system, but it's still a lot of good passing concepts that he takes with him. So
Ted Johnson had 4 or 5 touchdowns.
Yeah. So like the struggles, he's not the offense. The struggles with the offense, I don't think was all on Grizzard. I think it was a lot of it was injuries as the season went on, and just so it wasn't all on him. I think
Mayfield got injured and played. It wasn't nearly as good.
Exactly. So like I think Grizzard was someone that I was like, I don't know if I'd want him as OC, but bringing him in here as pass game coordinator, wonderful. Like I think that's great because you give him the opportunity to now continue to learn, because he was someone similar to like a name like Zach Robinson, or someone like Bobby Slowick, right? Who was at one time like they were like, okay, these are like the next big things, and then one bad season, and now they're like hardly anyone wants them. But Grizzard is similar to that, where he's young. His first opportunity might not have worked out as much as he wanted or as good as he wanted, but he still has potential. Like he still has ability,
and he's called plays, right? And that's the thing.
Yep.
He's called plays, so he can help with that sequencing aspect. Because even if Mannion has been under all this tutelage, and we've seen his resume, who he's played under, who he's coached under, until you're actually doing it and you have the final say, like we've heard him say that he's going to have the final say, you really don't know what it's going to feel like to wear that hat. But I also feel like we've given him the tools more so than a Patullo, more so than a Brian Johnson, to be successful, right, as a first-time play caller. And this is something that they can probably learn from the Patullo in a promotion. They said, how can we not make this same mistake, right? How can we not make this same mistake? How can we put the money we've invested in offense in the players? How can we put that to the best use? How can that lead us to be the most successful? And that's kind of where we're at. And it's good to see. We're not sitting here saying, I don't think anybody from any article, national, local, has said like this is a lock in the bag, like this is going to work. But kudos to the Eagles for looking at it from a different lens and a different perspective, and taking a different approach, right? Yeah. I find it, I'm trying to sit here and think not so much on a local level, but even on a national level, like a QB who has been talked about to, hey, the system that they run or his limitations to what he can, not so much what he can and can't do, but almost when Jalen is talked about, it's almost a refusal to give into certain things, or he doesn't want to do this, he doesn't want to do that, or he prefers not. Every QB has their preferences. I haven't heard Lamar talked about in that way, even though Lamar really hasn't had, I wouldn't say he's had a coordinator like a McVay or something like that, because he went from Roman to Monken. But now they got Declan Doyle. It's a little bit different. We're going to see. But I don't hear the same conversation. Oh, well, Lamar may not be able to do this. The things that, because if you look at where Declan Doyle came from, I understand it's Ben Johnson, but Ben Johnson had Jared Goff looking like an MVP. Jared Goff, the parallels between Jared Goff and Lamar Jackson simply stop at the color of their hands. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. What they have in common is they both play the quarterback position and they play in the NFL. That's about where the similarities stop. You know what I mean?
I would like to see Jalen try to do some of these things that people claim that he can't do or doesn't want to do. I think he's going to have to do some of them.
Yes.
But this narrative sort of takes on a life of its own here.
Yes.
And you don't know. You know, a couple of years ago, I think it was Tim McManus wrote a story saying back when the Brian Johnson year, it was that really Jalen wanted to throw over the middle more.
Right.
You know, that they just weren't set up for that. I don't know. I mean, we hear all this stuff and it sort of becomes canon, I guess. But how the hell do we know? You know, I want to see, prove to me that he can't throw over the middle, or that he can't, throw in sequence, or whatever it is that he hasn't done. I don't know. I mean, he's got a lot of experience behind him now, 80-some starts in the NFL. Maybe he should, I would think after this season that they just went through, that he'd be open to trying to learn this stuff. And I have a hard time thinking that he couldn't do it. We'll see.
Like, to piggyback off of that, it's just like, I think there's a difference when we talk about Jalen Hurts. There's a difference between, like, what does his physical ability allow him and not allow him to do, and that's fair. You know what I mean? Like, there's, when you have the conversation of like, okay, like, is arm strength, is like arm strength, or like, is he fast like Lamar and Caleb? No, he's not that. Like, if you talk about, like, is he a big power thrower? Like, can he see over the offensive line? No, like, those things are, I think they're completely fair, because those things are stuff that you kind of have to. And like, when you talk about scouting a player, right? When you formulate a scouting report, you have like the strengths section and the weaknesses section. But the weaknesses section is kind of like, for lack of a better word, I won't say overlooked when you bring it to a team, because a team and a coach, they want to know what the strengths of the person are, the player are, so that they can emphasize those strengths. The weaknesses are more so just like, okay, like, we can work around that, right? And to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, Pete, is that, what's it like? Why don't we hear that about Lamar? I'll be fair, like, because I think Lamar being one of the elite, he can thrive in almost any type of offense. That's the thing. Like, so that's why we don't hear about Lamar. But outside of like the elite quarterbacks, every single quarterback has to have a system where it's tailored to their strengths. And it's funny because, like, one of the guys, like, I think we all have so much respect for, Greg Cosell, who's been doing this film study thing in the media for God knows how long. That's a point that he always hammers home, is like, people take the moniker, the notion of system QB, and think of it as a negative. It's not really a negative, because almost every quarterback is a system QB. They play to the system, right? So there's a difference between that and saying, like, okay, like, systematically, X's and O's wise, Hurts can't do this. But I have trouble buying into that when one Hurts is a coach, as a son of a coach, right? So he knows how to be coached up. He constantly is going to former great QBs like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, continuously asking them, like, what can I do here? What can I do here? And that's we're talking about like mentally. And when you ask Brady and Manning like what they think about Hurts, they speak about him with glowing remarks. Like they laud him all the time. And again, I harken back to like the play action thing, the under center thing, like, and even throwing over the middle. The narrative before, or like it continues to kind of still be there, but they say like he can't throw in the middle of the field. I think we need to adjust that statement and say he doesn't excel at throwing to the middle of the field at a high rate. Like that's not one of his biggest things. It's not.
You wouldn't want to build your offense around.
Yes,
that.
exactly.
Right.
But can he do it enough to be effective? I think you've seen it constantly. Like I think especially in 2022 when we had what's his name? Who was the offense coordinator? The offense coordinator. Steichen. Yeah. So when we had Steichen, go back and look at those games, guys. There were games where he was throwing to the middle of the field several times. So I do not know where this notion comes from where he can't. He can. Just there's a difference between excelling at it and being just good enough. Like he's good enough to do it. So that's why it's just like let's I think Mina Kans was on PHLY I think last week and she said it I think she said it perfectly. It's not that you have to call he's limited to what the type of offense you run. It's more so there's a certain offense you have to run.
Right.
Like you have to run a certain type of offense to help him. And it applies to every other quarterback that's not elite. Every other quarterback that's not Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, like that's the thing. So
they're scheme independent.
Yes, they're scheme independent. But then like most quarterbacks aren't scheme independent. It's not a knock. It's just how it is. And so you get the final thing is, we've answered the question already. Can you win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts?
Yes.
You absolutely can. So what's the problem? What's the problem? Two more things I wanted to touch on before we move on past the Eagles topic. Pete, we and you kind of like touched on this. So like, you can start off with it and then Les give your 2 cents. But with another OC coming in from the outside, right? And now like calling plays. It starts to the questions come up even more now about what is Nick's value truly? Like what does he bring to the table, right? And I know we have some people who are insistent. Like we have a certain friend that's like, oh, Sean Mannion is there's a good chance he's the replacement for. Yeah,
he's going to be the
next head coach over Nick Sirianni. And I'm torn. I've told Pete this already, but I'm like torn because I see Nick's value. I also see what he's not. I don't think Nick is an elite head coach like the Sean McVays or anything like that. Kyle Shanahan's. I don't think he's an elite head coach. I don't think he's a bad head coach because once you get out of that top tier of coaches, I think Nick is as good as any of the other names you put out there. But that's the conundrum is like because he doesn't call plays and like offensively, he's not like an offensive guru or offensive mind. So what value does he bring? And would you rather have a coach that calls offensive plays? So like if Sean Mannion is like an up-and-coming guy, would the Eagles be better off with him as head coach over Nick? Which is what I keep to say. What I've said is, but what scenario can you pick up where Nick isn't the head coach if they're successful? There's hardly a scenario. So,
the only reason you would make Mannion the head coach is if this really works and the offense is great. Well, if the offense is great, how are you going to fire Nick? What the hell?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it would have to be almost like it would have to be in like a mutual parting of ways. And I don't think you would get that. But also it makes it challenging because you made Mannion an OC. You can't block him from doing something lateral, but a team would have to kind of make him a head coach offer, and then he would have to turn it down. To answer your question about what Nick brings to the table, this is where, because of the fact of how he was an offensive guy and a play caller, well, he wasn't a play caller, but offensive coordinator for a team very similar to Mannion, right? not conceptually, we've seen that, but very similar to Mannion. He was there with Frank Reich in Indianapolis, up and coming coach. Obviously, Howie and Jeff saw something in him. He was under the radar, but he showed these qualities and this skill set to I guess to be a leader of men, to lead a room, right? And that's why I always say, like, it's hard to put, for Nick's perspective, if you, in a way I explain it, unless it's the first time you're hearing it, I would say, if I look at Sirianni as a business, as a publicly traded company, and we're the ones who are evaluating this company and what his roles are, what his assets are, and what he brings to the table to make an offer, it's not, there aren't things that are going to be publicly talked about. Because if you look at the public opinion of the company, there isn't a lot of value there because the employees of the company make the overall company look very, very strong. That's what Sirianni is. But I would wonder, I'm just drawing this parallel now, back in 2008 or 2008, when Mike Tomlin got hired. Mike Tomlin was a DB's coach. For his first 5 or 6 years, was this talked about? At what point did this, how much success does Nick have to have where that conversation stops?
Yeah.
Right. And what I think has to happen is, and it's kind of already happening because we've seen it with the Steelers and mediocrity, right? Mike Tomlin only got the Steelers to 1 Super Bowl. Nick has already been to 2. Right. And I would say when Tomlin, those early teams were loaded with a roster.
Yeah. Because they
loaded with a roster. But throughout the years, and Tomlin had the success, no matter who the coordinators were, coming in, coming out, the quarterback, he was able to get the team above 500. They lived the mediocrity, but the difference is this fan base and what we have, we know our window is not going to last forever.
Yeah.
And I think for Nick, even if you take a look at a coach, like we sit here and say offensive play calling coach, right? Take a look at Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur, his offenses can score points. They can put up points. It's the small things, the timeouts in the second half, when and where to take them, when to challenge a call, that type of stuff. And I feel confident saying this. Nick, to me, at most times has a better pulse on that because I think he has less off his plate. So while we're sitting here saying that, I think Howie is the puppet master. He knows I think he has an idea what it takes to be successful and how to use his coaches in a successful way. And he's like, if I take this off your plate, and I know you want this probably, you want this responsibility, that's only human nature, but I find you better when this is not your responsibility and you don't have to worry about this from a day-to-day daily grind. Most executive managers are sitting on meetings, but they're not in day-to-day departmental meetings. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's where Nick truly, truly excels at, where others would either be less successful or want more of the power and more control. And for whatever reason, right now, the hierarchy in Philadelphia, when it comes to the Eagles organization, this is what works for them. And you can't really argue with it as much as you want to and speculate. They've had success.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Not every year, but they've had success over the 5 years that he's been here.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, like at what point do we stop having the conversation of like what does Nick bring? I think it has to get to a point where Nick has to show that he is the type of coach who does a lot with a little. Right now, he hasn't had to do that because the roster has been set, right? And I don't want to take that away, but that is what people look at as what, like, how can you help define what a great coach is? Doing a lot, getting the most out of what you have. So until that is concretely answered, I think the core questions will still always be there about what Nick does. And can he eventually be that where he, like, the roster isn't as good as it is now or has been, but he's still able to make them a winning team and say like, oh, you exceeded expectations because the coach did a great job at doing whatever he's trying to do. That's awesome. Like, we have examples of that with, Mike Vrabel. Look what he's in the Super Bowl. And then also, like, I know Kyle Shanahan hasn't won, bless you. He hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, but look at the roster he had this season, and he brought them to the second round of the playoffs. That's insane. So that's the type of coach we're talking about when you're talking about the elite coaches. So can Nick eventually be that? So Les, I don't know what your thoughts are. Like, what is the value you think he brings, and can he be looked at as that type of coach?
Well, both you guys made excellent points, really good points. The thing that fascinates me is I'm pretty sure when they hired Nick 5 years ago, they thought they were getting an offensive mind. I think they thought they were going to, it would be like Andy, that he would be, that they'd run Nick Sirianni's offense forever, that quickly turned out not to be the case. I do think, there are people who say, oh, he's just a cheerleader, blah, blah, blah. That's ridiculous. That's silly. Yeah. I think he sets a tone. I think every day he brings forth expectations and urgency and focus, every day in practice, every day in the meeting rooms. And I tell you what, I've covered several coaches, and as far as I can tell, he still has everybody in the locker room pretty much. There's nobody whispering about Sirianni. You hear whispers about this and that, but you don't really hear a lot of anti-Nick whispering other than the interactions with the fans sometimes. I know there are players that think that's silly because it is. But in terms of his overall coaching, I don't think the players think that he's superfluous or, that he doesn't bring much to the table. But it is weird. I mean, usually a coach is either running the offense or running the defense, and if you're not doing either, it's an interesting situation, and it's an uncomfortable, there are a lot of things that can go wrong here. And if he sees Sean Mannion as his successor, I'm not sure this is going to work great. He doesn't want to work himself out of a job. It's an interesting setup, and it's not the setup I think they prefer to have in best of all possible worlds.
Yeah, and I think I threw this hypothetical out jokingly in our chat, but I was like, the only way I can see and be happy with Mannion being the head coach is if we win the Super Bowl next year, and Nick surprisingly wants to retire because he figures he's set for life. And then Mannion gets promoted. I think that's the only the chances of that happening are so slim.
Yeah, Nick's still a very young man in coaching.
Yeah, he's still young. Yeah, so I don't see that happening, but it is what it is. But
Nick's not the kind of guy that we all listen to him in these press conferences. Fox or NBC isn't going to hire Nick to be the next.
Exactly.
To be the next. Yeah. I hear you. But speaking of potential retirements, and the last Eagles topic I want to get on. So we all kind of got this scare the past few days with Vic Fangio. The reports coming out that he was considering retirement, and some reports, to be fair, were saying this was the same level of consideration as of last year when after the Super Bowl when he considered retirement. So to some people they're saying like it shouldn't be new, but also reports have said that he's good, he's coming back, they're not worried about it. So, but I pose this question now: after this season, what is your level of concern that he's going to retire, and what would your plan of action be if he does? Les, what do you think?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, and I think that's certainly something the Eagles are thinking about. Even if they are satisfied that he'll be there this season, they hate that Christian Parker left. I think he was the main guy.
I think we all do.
Really would have liked to have succeeded Vic with. It's not like, people go out and they think about this guy over here or that guy over there who might be a very good defensive coordinator. But at this point, do you want to retool your defense around another scheme?
Right.
Like the Jim Schwartz talk was absurd.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
a
you.
completely
Way
different
you
defense.
could run Jim
Oh,
Schwartz's defense with this personnel and have any kind of success.
Right.
At that point, Zach Bond and Jihad Campbell become sunk costs. You don't have the edge rush that Jim Schwartz would want at all.
Yeah.
I know, and so it's going to be real tricky, I guess is my point. Is there somebody on the current staff who could provide that continuity, who would be that level of intellect? Boy, now that you've let Christian Parker, you didn't let him, you had to let him.
Right.
Yeah.
People talk about Clint Hurt, but I was reminded just recently that the defensive linemen who become coordinators don't have a great history in the NFL. That's not something that happens a lot.
Yeah, defensive linemen. I feel like quarterbacks transition to good OCs. Linemen can do it because they have a bigger picture of just outside their role. Where I'm not taking anything away from Clay Hurt, but like a defensive lineman,
it's different.
More pigeonhole. Where like most of your defensive coordinators that were former players that end up being worth their salt are generally linebackers or DBs because
linebackers or DBs. Yeah, that's almost universal. Yeah.
Yes, they have a different lens. They kind of know they know what's going on in front of them. They know what's going on behind them, where the play calls are. And from DBs, they had just that view. They're looking at everything as a whole. I don't honestly think there's anyone on the staff that they could probably think of. I would probably, if he did retire and we did still lose Christian Parker, it sounds crazy. I probably would have taken McDermott over Schwartz just because of McDermott. I feel like the personnel that we have, we'd be more suited. But outside the box, and kudos to Vic if he wants to retire, right? Won the Super Bowl. You've been coaching for what, almost 30 plus years.
Oh, more than that.
More. He's 67 by the time
he's 67. He'll be 68 in August.
He'll be 68 before the season starts. And it's just a problem that the Eagles have to trust and kind of do the same thing on the defensive side. It was a little easier to find Vic because he kind of fell into their lap. Things got sour in Miami, and Howie knows how to close a deal.
We've been patting ourselves on the back for a couple years with this. Oh, Vic's too old to be a head coach again. He won't leave. Well, the downside of that is he's old. He can leave. Not everybody coaches until they're 80.
Pete Carroll.
Right.
No, I think I prefer. I would prefer an inside hire because I want someone who's going to be able to have learned under Fangio,
right,
and take the reins that way, so that there's some sort of continuity. Clint Hurt, as much as I like the guy, you guys make an absolute fair point that defensive lineman coaches usually they don't pan out that way. So that wouldn't be. I forget who are. There's another name that people keep bringing up on the staff that could be potential replacement.
I was actually going to try to find the
corners coach and the linebackers coach are both guys that have some history with Vic, and I wasn't really prepared to talk about that. Let's see.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's more so
Roy Anderson is the corners coach.
He's the corners coach.
And of course, there's Joe Casper does the safeties, and who is the linebacker guy? Well, Bobby King does the inside linebackers. Jeremiah Washburn, who's been on staff for a long time.
For a while. Yeah, he's been on for a while.
Does defensive ends and outside linebackers.
Okay.
So
I don't know. Edge. Okay.
I don't know if there's anybody there that
really. Yeah. It's more so and if you have to go outside for this, I get it. I think because when you look at the Fangio tree, that's the other thing, is there are guys that really aren't that successful.
That's right.
Right? Because I think with people lost this when we hired Fangio. I think fans kind of got this was lost in translation, and this is why I had so much faith that Fangio would work out, is because when you have disciples of a tree, it's one thing.
Yeah.
When you have the architect of the darn scheme itself, that's the other. And
Like Belichick.
What sets Fangio apart from a guy because I think people were connecting Gannon to Fangio too much.
Yes.
I think we've seen Gannon has Fangio roots, right? Or influences, but I think he's more so Eberflus than Fangio, because he's more static in playing that off, right? But with Fangio, I think the big thing of why he makes such a difference is because he knows how to coach the details. And it's just it's similar to the offensive side of Shanahan, right? Kyle Shanahan, he took his father's scheme.
Yeah.
It's not so much the scheme itself and being a disciple teaching the scheme. It's more so, okay, how do you coach and teach the details of said scheme and know the finer points of it to adjust things when you need to. I remember one of the things was okay, Fangio won't blitz. We need to blitz more. How many games have we called where Fangio turned up the blitz because he needed to? A lot. And that's the thing. That's been if there's one example of what sets him apart is in game he will adjust. And he's not static to one thing. Whereas Gannon, as we saw in the Super Bowl, Gannon just stuck to what he did. And on that last drive, when the Eagles needed a stop, get off the field, no matter what, he refused to change. And that's what did the team in. If Gannon had called any type of blitzes to get off the field, even if it ended in points, the Eagles would have gotten the ball back. But he was too stubborn to do that.
Right.
That's the differences. And so I would need a coach. If the scheme is a little different, sure. But you have to have that mindset of, okay, how can I adjust and how can I make changes to really suit what's needed of me as a defensive play caller. That's what made
the point that I would make about Vic and his staff is that they've taught so well.
Yeah,
rookies get ready to play and are really good out of the box. Guys develop like Moro Ajomo. And I got frustrated during the season because, frankly, you don't see a lot of that on the offensive side of the ball at all.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's a precious thing. I mean, it really is. It's not something that's common at all.
No, it's not. That's not. So
there's a lot pending when Vic goes. I think that's a big deal when it happens.
Yes, 100%. Any final thoughts on the Eagles coaching situation as we head, as we prepare for the offseason?
No, not for me.
Yeah, I just think, it's going to be fascinating to watch the day in and day out how this all comes together and how Nick approaches the offense. I've heard that Mannion is a pretty boring speaker, which that's pretty common.
About me.
But what is he going to be willing to share about what he wants to do and how he's going to do it?
Right.
How much of a sense of that will we get in the spring and in the training camp before we actually see the games? It's going to be something that'll be written about every day and talked about every day.
Absolutely, and I'm excited for. I was this level of excitement. Was what I had when Kellen Moore came in. I was just something fresh, and I think this is as the next season comes closer. I think my excitement level will be even more because I know, Pete, for as long as you've done shows with me, I've been begging for the Eagles to bring in someone from the Shanahan tree. Yeah. I love that's my favorite offensive system. So the philosophies and everything like that, the principles of it, getting that into the building finally, is a breath of fresh air. So I'm very, very excited for what the offseason brings. Les, we apologize for keeping you longer than expected.
That's okay.
We get into these conversations about the Eagles and
it's been fun.
We get deep into it. Yeah. But we appreciate you coming on as always. You're beloved guest, and thank you for your time. And feel better with your cold that you're having.
Yeah,
and we'll see you soon. And enjoy the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you guys too. Yes. Thanks a lot. Take care, both of you.
You as well. Get well soon, Les. Thank you.
Bye, Les. That's Les Bowen. Awesome. Always having him on and getting that other opinion on the Eagles. All right, so let's transition. I know we ran a little longer with that segment, but we do have one more game of the 2025 NFL season we have to get into. One final game, and that's Super Bowl 60. And man, it's so funny when I'm seeing fans online, like Eagles fans, and they're saying like I'm not really excited about this game. This goes to show that I'm like as much as I'm an Eagles fan, I am such a big fan of the NFL in general because I'm psyched. It's I guess no matter what the Super Bowl matchup is, I'm going to be excited. And it's also because it's the last football game of the season, and I hate to see football go. But Super Bowl 60, Seahawks versus Patriots. We'll go to each side of the ball, right? Seahawks offense versus Pats defense, and then Pats offense versus Seahawks defense. And we'll each name one thing that we think is like a big matchup or what we're looking out for, right? So let's start with the Seahawks offense versus the Pats defense. Pete, what are you looking out for? Matchup, scheme-wise, anything that you
as well. The Patriots have done a really good job the whole postseason to be able to stop the run and be able to contain it and make teams kind of go away from it. So that's where I think the ability for Milton Williams, the other big bull, I forget his name.
Christian Barmore.
Barmore. Yep. Those guys on the interior, if they can get pushed, because I mean the Seattle's offensive line is pretty good. I say it's above average. Charles Cross gets extra rest. Zabel.
Zabel's stud. Yeah,
stud. That's going to be in the trenches if they can run the ball effectively. And I mean, Walker's been hot. He's had the hot hand. So, and they haven't really seen a back like that. We even kind of seen it with RJ. RJ Harvey was able to get off a little bit in the AFC Championship game. This was able to do it consistently, but he was able to get off a little bit. And people sleep on K9's receiving ability, man.
Yes,
he's a decent receiver, and you put him in some open space, he can make guys miss. So that's my biggest takeaway is just the pressure that they can generate with the defensive line, and to be able to stop the run for our Seahawks versus the Patriots defense. I mean, outside of that level, the first level of Milton Williams, Barmore, you got Christian Ellis, former Eagle, in the middle side, and then you got Gonzo on the back end, right, and then the other safety Jalen as well. So I mean, they're very, very balanced. I don't think they've seen. We talked about this last week. I don't think they've seen an offense like Seattle's all year. And that's the first. It's hard to prepare for something you don't have any gauge or standard or reference point, and you're doing it now in the biggest game of the year. So it could be a little challenging.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And to piggyback off of that, because that was one of my keys. So we talk about the Seahawks run game, and it's primarily an outside zone scheme. The Patriots defense versus outside zone this year, they've led up 3.01 yards per carry, negative 0.22 EPA per play, a 27.1% stuff rate, and a 5.61% explosive run rate. So against outside zone, they've been really, really good. So that's something that's going to be very interesting because they've been, especially from week 16 and on and into the playoffs, the Seahawks run game has been on fire, with K9 leading the way and all that. An interesting tidbit, though, and something I'm going to be looking out for. When I was looking up K9's stats and analytics when it comes to different run concepts, right? They run outside zone. He's really good at outside zone. But when it comes to other concepts, he has with man run concepts, he has a 7.7 yards. This is since week 16. Okay, since week 16 up until now, 7.7 yards per carry, and a 0.36 EPA per play. Again, with pull lead concepts, It's 7.5 yards per carry and 0.93 EPA per play. And they've run only 2 trap runs, but I'll go to that too. 7.5 yards per carry with a 0.39 EPA per play. So when it comes to other concepts that they've run, K9 has been absolutely dangerous on those concepts. So it will be very interesting to see. I don't expect Kubiak to diverge completely away from outside zone. That's their bread and butter because it sets up the play action, right? But I do want to see if they start to call other concepts outside of that to kind of catch the Patriots defense off guard and off balance, right? So that's going to be very interesting. The other thing that I'm going to be looking out for is obviously that big matchup on the outside, JSN versus Christian Gonzalez, right? So that's a matchup for the ages.
Yep.
I think that also we got to keep in mind the Seahawks. I know we've talked about this several times throughout the season. The Seahawks offense in 12 personnel is dangerous, right? So when they run 12 personnel, 46% play action rate off of it. They garner 13 yards per play on those play action shots. And if you're gonna go light and defend the pass, when they go 12 personnel, right? If you're a defense, well, the Seahawks have a 58% success rate on run plays against sub packages when they're running out of 12 personnel. So it's like pick your poison when they go 12 personnel. What are you going to be able to stop? You're going to be able to stop the run from that or stop the pass. So that's another thing to watch out for. Now, flipping it over. This is the tough one. Seahawks defense versus Patriots offense, right? Because if we're being honest, the Patriots offense in this playoffs hasn't been great. Right?
No, but they have been able to run the ball.
They've been able to run the ball.
Yes.
They've played really good defenses, and to be fair, they've also been in inclement weather through much of the games. So I'll factor that in. But they haven't been great. Maye has had issues protecting the ball. With fumbling and everything. So that's a thing. The fumbles, that's an obvious thing that they're gonna have to key away with. What is one key matchup or key thing for the when the Patriots have the ball against the Seattle defense?
Ball protection. It sounds cliche-ish. It sounds like it's very simple, but it's just protect the ball. Protect the ball from Maye. Don't put the ball on the ground. Don't put the ball, I'm going to say don't put it in harm's way, but just try to limit your turnovers. I think there's going to be at least one. I mean, once again, and I think this is where, from an offensive perspective, seeing the Texans definitely helps them. I mean, I know they're similar but different, but you got to see and play against a very aggressive defense that's playing at a high level as a unit, and you had some success, right? And this kind of goes into more when we look at the overall game. I don't know if they have answers for every question that Seattle poses on the defensive side. Mm-hmm. And that's just not so much from a scheme perspective. I think that's from a personnel perspective. I mean, because if you look at the Patriots coming, it's weird because if you look at the Seahawks coming into the game, outside of the factors, Clinton Kubiak probably going to take the Raiders job. If you look at the Patriots, obviously no head coaches or no coaches are leaving, but you got the Barmore and the Stephon Diggs legal proceedings. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know where they're going to be at, where that plays in their mind, and they're good for the game, so it probably won't be on their mind that much. But for Maye, it's just really it may come down to him having to put the cape on, and I don't know if he can do that in this biggest stage.
Yeah,
because they don't. This is why if I'm them and they lose this game, I'm calling the Eagles and I'm saying I will give you a 1 and something else for AJ Brown, because that is a team who needs it. They need something else. Now they find themselves in this game in the Super Bowl, and anything can happen. But trust me, if they had an AJ Brown opposite Stephon Diggs, or a Brandon Ayuk if he was healthy and it should have went there in the first place, then that we're having a different conversation. Maybe not vastly different, but more of a better than just a puncher's chance.
Yeah, Yeah, they do. So the thing I'm looking out for, one, the Seahawks defense has to make sure they don't let May make plays with his legs, right?
Yep.
That's
Ernest Jones. Your number's been called.
And I don't think that they will, because I think that the Seahawks play primarily 74% of what they play on defense is zone. So they'll have eyes on the quarterback.
Right.
So I don't expect them to be susceptible to May's running ability. But the big thing to me is getting pressure on May, right? So pull this stat up. When May has a clean pocket this season, he has an EPA per play of plus 0.544. When he's under pressure, it drops to negative 0.094. So that's a significant drop. So when he's under pressure, the production is not there. So that's the thing. That's the biggest thing. So will this Seahawks defense be able to generate pressure on them? Because they against the Rams, they really weren't able to get pressure. They didn't blitz a lot, and the front four of the Seahawks didn't really get pressure on Stafford, and that's why Stafford
was more just a familiar matchup and not wanting to.
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the Seahawks do in that regard. If they try to do pressure, and if they with blitzing, and if that doesn't work, will they go to just the 4-man rush? I don't know, but that's the key thing is pressure. If the Patriots can keep May clean, May will take his deep shots, and he'll be aggressive. That's how the Patriots are going to have a puncher's chance in this. That's how they're going to be able to make something, is by keeping May clean. If that doesn't happen, I think the Seahawks will roll. I think the Seahawks, they pressure May. I think this is a significant win for the Seahawks. Very, very I think I don't think it's a close game. So that's the big difference. That is the big difference, I think, from that side of the ball. I think the last thing, I think we both agree to this, the special teams, specifically the two return men, who have arguably been the two best return men in the game this season, Rashid Shaheed for the Seahawks and Marcus Jones for the Patriots. I would bet almost anything that at least one of them is going to make a huge play in this game.
They were flip field position and possibly
field position. Yep. Yeah. They're too good. So I expect them to make an impact. So
I can see that. Special teams is definitely going to play a role in this game.
Yep. How crazy would it be if the Seahawks pull? Remember when Devin Hester took the opening kickoff?
Yeah.
in that Super Bowl, they lost. The Bears lost, but the opening kickoff.
That was 2006.
2006, 2006-2007 season. Yeah, it was crazy. I remember that. All right. Anything else preview-wise for the Super Bowl?
No, sir. No.
Right.
I mean, Seahawks, I think they can win close. They can win a blowout. And I think it's Seahawks too. Yeah. I don't see how the Seahawks. Well, I won't say this. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I heavily favor the Seahawks here. I think it's just too much. The only way I see them not winning this game is if Darnold implodes somehow. If he somehow has 3 to 4 turnovers again. So so let's go to. I was debating doing this topic, but as I was running down the awards, all of them are pretty chalk. They're all really obvious, right? So even if it's just if it's two names, it's between those two names, and there's no one else. There's no real award. The only award is that is really up for interpretation, I guess you can say, is maybe Coach of the Year. But I still think Vrabel is the favorite by a heavy margin. So even with that, it is what it is. I mean, is there any award where you'd be this is just you're putting your foot down with this person getting this award? I would. So for me, I'll go. Putting my foot down. This defensive player of the year has to be Myles Garrett. at this.
Well, yeah, that's obvious. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. I'll go against
lead by example. Give me what's your example.
I'll go against the grain. I think for the heavy favorite for defensive rookie of the year is Carson Schwarzenegger. Absolutely deserved. I personally would put Nick Emenwari for the Seahawks. I think what he's brought to the defense, it's been so impactful. And maybe it's because I still think these awards should factor in the playoffs, but they don't. But that's just my bias. But the fact that Emenwari is here having this type of impact for the Seahawks defense and helping them get to the Super Bowl is I'd give the defensive rookie of the year to Emenwari. That'd be my pick.
Let me see.
It's tough because I mean, like Myles Garrett, obviously defensive player of the year. JSN, obviously offensive player of the year. I mean, I guess it's MVP between Matthew Stafford and Drake Maye. I guess that's a toss up. I already mentioned coach of the year. We all know comeback player of the year is probably CMC.
Coach of the year, I mean, I can see it being McDonald too.
Yeah, I can. I think the only thing against him is that
I can also see it being Peyton too.
Yeah.
Or Liam Cohen.
I think the only thing against them is that they had success. They had success last year. I think the Seahawks were a 10-win team last year.
Yeah.
And the Broncos made it to the playoffs. So the fact that like they were good teams last year, I think that goes against McDonald and Peyton. But that'd be the only thing. I think there were several names where I'm like, coaches like for coach of the year, you could name them and I'd be like, okay, cool. I think Ben Johnson would be. I would pick Ben Johnson. But Vrabel,
I forgot about Ben.
Yeah, Ben Johnson would probably be my pick, but I get it if Vrabel wins it. He's so deserving of it too.
Yeah.
So,
I would just. I mean, it's not so much even going on a limb, but Ted McMillan, ORY Offensive Rookie of the Year out of Carolina, wide receiver.
He's the favorite for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like him a lot to win that one. Man. I'm curious to see if they're going to get made an MVP. I think it should be Stafford.
I think he's going to win it.
Yeah.
I think he's going to win.
I think it should be Stafford, and then at that point, who knows if he comes back next year or not?
We'll see. That's a burning question for all off season. Absolutely.
So,
no huddle. There are a bunch of hires. Do you want to hit on any of them real quick?
I'll run through them.
I mean.
So has there been any? So I don't.
Raiders. So the Raiders hired Clint Kubiak. I know we talked about last week how appealing.
So that's already done. He knows that's happening.
That's the foregone conclusion that Clint Kubiak will be the Raiders.
So what jobs are open left? The Cardinals?
No, they've all been filled. They've all been filled now. Mike LaFleur is supposed to be
the Cardinals.
Yeah.
He was the OC in the LA, right, with the Rams.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
So, yeah. I mean, today Giants hired Matt Nagy as their offensive coordinator.
I mean, hey, like if you want to, once again, what they're trying to do in New York is build a culture. I mean, he's building a culture. You have established. You want a seasoned staff at that for that team, and that's what they're getting. That's what they're providing right now.
Yeah, I mean.
Dry age coaches.
With Harbaugh, I don't know if I said this on the show, but with Harbaugh, good coach. I'm not taking away from him, but he's to me, he's not the same as Tomlin. Like he's just not, and I don't. A lot of his success to me was dependent on his coordinators. Him not being able to get Monken, I think is a significant loss. And then having to settle with Matt Nagy, who I had said, like, if there's one coach in this coaching cycle where I don't understand, it's Matt Nagy. So you're getting Matt Nagy. That to me, for going from Monken to Nagy, is a huge drop off. So there's a baseline of establishing, like you said, 100. Like, agree with that.
Yeah.
There's a high floor, but what's your ceiling? Yeah. I don't see a high ceiling with it. So the Giants might come back to relevancy, but I don't. So far, and it's a long off season. So far, none of this makes me be like, oh, they're gonna do something. Like I just don't see it. I don't know. I don't see it. That's all. I mean, the Kwesi firing by the Vikings, I don't know if it was a firing. Like, I think they parted ways, or maybe
Minnesota.
it was a fire.
Minnesota's, I mean, for all types of reasons, Minnesota is just they going through it right now. At least they had the highest paid coordinator in the league, Brian Flores. So.
And I know that us in the chat, we had this conversation last year, right? I think a couple of times the topic got brought up. But it was just like, if Sam Darnold has success with the Vikings in the playoffs, do you keep him or do you go with JJ McCarthy? And I had said they made their bed by taking JJ McCarthy. I think they kind of have to. I think they're stuck, right? I think it goes to show that that was the wrong. I mean, so far it's only 1 year of JJ McCarthy, but it's also 2 straight years where JJ McCarthy has been injured.
Yep.
So, and then now Sam Darnold is in the Super Bowl with the Seahawks. So
syndrome.
It's getting really hard to not believe the Vikings made a mistake by letting Darnold go. And who knew we'd be uttering those words? Who knew that about Sam Darnold?
12 months ago, nobody did, because he played so bad in a wild card round against the Rams.
Against the Rams, yeah. So it's just a very, very interesting conversation, and the Vikings are spiraling. So that's all I got. Anything else for you?
That is all. That is all for me. People, be safe, travel safe, stay warm. Block pool season is out. Hopefully, good numbers. Good luck to everyone. And yeah, man.
Enjoy the final game of the NFL 2025 season, because it's a long off season. So enjoy it. Thank you to our sponsor again, Alonzi Travel. Make sure you reach out to me. You thinking about a vacation? Hit me up, Charles, at alonzi-travel.com. For myself, for Mr. OGP, for Les, and for the rest of us at A2D Radio, we thank you. Enjoy the game, Super Bowl 60, and we will see you next week as we recap and break down the Super Bowl. Until then, peace out.
Peace.